You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com. Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Check New York Bozo! New York Bozo! New York Bozo!
I got to get my biceps a little bigger.
Yeah, you can always work on that.
Or I could sure use a hot dog with chili.
You know what time the game starts? Hey, you got any left-handed footballs? We need to fire him. Is anybody else tired, or is it just me? Good thing I'm in shape. You got any eligibility left? I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
Welcome back to Pack to the Future. We are so freaking stoked to be back talking Packers football on the airways. I'm your host, Brian Fonfera. With me, as always, I've got Jordan Peck. How you doing, buddy?
Gentlemen, it is good to be back with you after a long off season.
It's so good to hear your voice over recorded media again. Just those silky deep tones that add so much to our podcast.
I've been working on it. I've been working on it for this next season.
I love it. And we've got our office lush, Dusty Evely. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm like quite a few bourbons in at this point, so I am excited. I just, I love you guys. I missed you guys. I'm excited, man. I was up at Lambeau a couple weeks ago, did the tour, stood on the field. I could not be more excited to be back and record this podcast with you fellas.
Are we both your best friend right now?
You are both my best friends right now.
As you can see, going back to Lambeau was a religious experience for Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious. He is enriched and enlightened right now, and it's glorious.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple bourbons deep on top of it. So we're ready to roll here.
We're ready, fellas.
All right, you guys ready to talk some Packers football?
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it. All right, we're going to start off by introducing a new segment. It is called the Coin Toss. The way this works is we were sick of agreeing with each other all the time, so we found a way to make sure that we disagree more often and tell both sides of the story. So we'll just start by introducing our first topic. It is the tight end debate. Jared Cook returned to practice today, looked pretty good. Richard Rodgers has cut some weight. He's looked pretty good, and Aaron Rodgers has said some good things. So the debate, Dusty versus Jordan, I'm going to flip a coin. So one of them has to defend Richard Rodgers as our number one tight end, and one has to defend Jared Cook as our number one tight end. So I'm going to start with Jordan. You're going to go first. Heads will be Jared Cook. Tails will be Richard Rodgers.
Alrighty.
It is heads. So Jordan, you have to defend Jared Cook as our number tight end. You have 30 seconds on the clock, and then Dusty will defend Richard Rodgers. So Jordan, on your leave.
Okay. Well, I think this is fairly simple for me. We can count maybe on one hand, possibly two hands, the amount of impactful free agents that Ted Thompson has signed, and this guy is one of them. So to think that this guy is going to be a backup to Richard Rodgers, a guy that was heavily criticized at many points of last season, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think there's no question that a healthy Jared Cook is easily going to get the majority of the snaps, the majority of the looks. Once he gets more practice with Rodgers during the preseason games, during training camp, I think he's going to distance himself from Rodgers. Not to say Rodgers isn't a good complementary piece, but Jared Cook is the new Jermichael Finley. We haven't had a tight end like him since Jermichael Finley. So I'm excited to see what he has to offer after one practice tonight. He's done well, so I think there's really, in my opinion, there's no debate whether Jared Cook is going to get the yeoman's load of tight end looks. I think he will.
All right. Well, I actually gave you a minute there And
yeah, no, I went. Yeah,
you know what? Everyone just bear with us because this is our first time trying this. So I think live on air, I'm going to change the rules and give you each 1 minute to debate because it doesn't seem like 30 seconds gets you a whole lot of information. So, Dusty, you now have 1 minute to tell us why Richard Rodgers should be our number 1 tight end, and I'll give you a 5-second warning. Go.
All right, Jordan, you said there's no debate, and there is a debate, and the debate goes like this. It goes that Dusty wins because Richard Rodgers should be number 1 because he has hands as soft as a baby's bottom. And Jared Cook has just hands of rocks. Like, he's real fast, and I like his athleticism, and I like what he could bring to the table. But his drop rates have increased, I believe, every year since he's been a starter, which is bad. Packers have a ton of good wide receivers this year. I think they're going to spread it out. They're going to need the tight end in the red zone, where Richard Rodgers is bigger and can post up bigger than Jared Cook can. So I see Rodgers getting a lot in the red zone. Cook maybe getting between the 20s, but not enough to say outweigh what Rodgers is going to get because he's going to play some there as well. So I think it comes down to, as we saw with Janis last year, comes down to who does Aaron Rodgers trust. And I believe he trusts Richard Rodgers because
5 seconds.
He knows how to run the routes and he's got very good hands.
All right. Well, I'm going to declare Dusty the winner because he got all up in your face, Jordan, and I liked that.
That's right.
I was gonna go political and interrupt him 30 seconds in, but I held. I was disciplined. So
I could feel it, man. I thought you were coming for me.
Well, I could have. Believe me. I could have.
Oh boy! All right, now we're gonna do 3 topics each week, and this week we have 2 more topics that involve 3 potential answers because I want to get involved here. So we'll move on to our next one, the wide receiver debate, and a lot of talk about: is it going to be Adams? Is it going to be Janis? Is it going to be Abbrederis? Who's going to make this team? How many are going to make this team? So, for our purposes, we're going to assume that one of those 3, Jeff Janis, Davante Adams, or Jared Abbrederis, is going to get cut at the end of training camp. So, we each have a receiver to cut. All right? So, I'm going to draw a name.
Before we get going, I'd like for Trevor Davis to acknowledge the respect that we're giving him for this. But,
He's got that. He's a rookie who's turned a couple heads already, so he automatically gets a spot. All right.
I don't disagree.
All right. So Jordan went first last time, so this time it'll be Dusty. Dusty, you have to cut Jared Abbrederis.
Easy.
All right. I'll go next, and I have to cut Davante Adams.
Oh,
which means that Jordan, you get the unfavorable task of cutting the Lord and Savior himself, Jeff Janis. So you had better prepare.
All right. I'm ready.
Dusty, you have 1 minute to tell us why we should cut Jared Abbrederis. Go.
I like Jared Abbrederis. He's got a lot of skill. He's quick. He's tall. He's got good hands. As we saw, remember in the game against the Redskins in the playoff game, he had a really, really nice, I believe it was a 2-point conversion. Just a beautiful kind of a high pass that he just, beautiful route, read the defender perfectly, perfect snag. But I think the injuries and the upside of Janis and the fact that Davante Adams was a high round pick just a couple years ago, I think shows they're going to be in, and Janis with the special team stuff. Abbrederis doesn't really bring that to the table. He's been fragile. He's been fine when he's been there. I know he's turned heads in training camp. He's done very, very well. But I think between high pick of Adams just a couple years ago, the fact that he could have a bounce back year, and Janis's special team prowess, I don't see how they keep Abbrederis from that group with those 2 doing as well as they do.
All right, well done. And now it's my turn to cut Davante Adams, and this doesn't really feel that difficult either. He had some really good plays in his rookie year. He is a bounce-back candidate, but he's slow. He's done a really poor job at tracking deep balls, which we know Rodgers loves to throw, and Rodgers was lost without his deep threat last year, just looking for someone to step up, and Adams didn't do it. And then, as you mentioned, the special teams contribution from Jeff Janis alone might have him a roster spot. Like, how many years did we keep Jared Bush, who contributed nothing to our defense, but there he was because of his special teams. And then Abradaris has such a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers. He's done a really good job at getting on the same page with him throughout his career. So I think those two will be kept. Adams, I know he was a high draft pick. I know he's got potential, but he hasn't really turned my head thus far, and he's going to have a really big preseason, I think, in order to stick around. All right, Jordan, the unenviable task of cutting Jeff Janis is upon you. You have 1 minute, sir. Go.
Well, people will say if Janis, you look at Janis, and if there's still doubts about his route running ability, and there certainly is still doubt about his route running ability, people always point right to his ability on special teams. Fair point. But you can't tell me, this guy was a 7th-round draft pick. They have brought in many undrafted free agents that you can't find one of these other wide receivers, one of these other speedsters to become the next gunner for the special teams. If one of these guys like Geronimo Allison or one of these other undrafted free agents turns out to become a better receiver throughout training camp, I could see Janis being left out. If he in this, I think I can't remember if it was on Wildy and Tausch's new show on ESPN, but Rodgers was glowing about Devontae Adams, glowing about the receiving core. With Janis, he wasn't derogatory, but his quote was he was just progressing.
5 seconds.
I mean, we don't know what that means. We don't know exactly what that means, but I just with that I am a little nervous. Even so, I'm not against Jeff Janis, but I think there's a big chance he doesn't make this roster.
All right. You know, I'm going to declare Jordan the winner. Ooh. Not because I agree with him, but because he had to cut Jeff Janis, which he'll probably get punched in the face for, and he stepped up to the plate.
That makes him the loser. He made a case for cutting Jeff Janis, and he made it very well.
You know what? He towed the company line.
Podcast, right?
He towed the company line. He did what he was told to do. He didn't complain. He was given an unenviable task, and he performed it. So,
guys, my platform is truth and integrity. So if you guys could vote for me in November, that'd be.
Oh, jeez. All right. All right. So our other task today after this coin toss is to preview the NFC North. So we're going to kind of merge the two here for our third and final coin toss. And we're going to ask the question, who will be the worst quarterback in the NFC North this year? Obviously, we all know Aaron Rodgers is going to be the best because he just is the best quarterback in this division, right? So,
right.
Each of us gets to make a case for why either Teddy Bridgewater, Matthew Stafford, or Jay Cutler will be the worst quarterback in this division. All right, I will go first.
This is the kind of question that gets other fan bases hating us.
Yeah, but it's so much fun, and I know I know that Brian Aviles, our resident Bears fan, is going to be listening to this show, and I mean, I don't think there's anything that can be said about Jay Cutler that Brian will disagree with. So.
Probably not. Probably not.
All right.
We'll find out. We'll find out, though.
So I'll go first, and I get... I got smoking Jay Cutler.
Oh. No, you rigged it.
I didn't rig it. I didn't rig it.
Whatever, man.
Jordan will go next, and he gets Matthew Stafford. Which means Dusty will finish us off, and he has to say why Teddy Bridgewater will be the worst quarterback in this division. You can have fun with that, though, Dusty. That's just such a wild card. You get to have fun with it.
I can do it. I believe in myself.
I believe in you too, man.
Thank you.
All right. So, I have a minute to say... I don't even need a minute. It's Jay Cutler. What more can you say? Everybody talked about how he improved last year. All he did was cut down on interceptions because he made fewer passes. And look at his touchdown numbers. They were way down. I've never gotten the vibe that he has the right attitude. This year, he doesn't have the same receivers. It's a bunch of unknowns on that Bears offense. They have a defensive head coach. I don't see any kind of career turnaround for Jay Cutler. It's going to be the same old Jay, as Charles Woodson would say. I don't know how many interceptions he's going to throw, but I promise it'll be more than last year. He's gonna come out feeling new confidence from his fewer interceptions last year and his second year in a system, and it's going to all backfire, blow up in his face. He'll be back to his 20 interception self, and I feel super confident saying that. Jay Cutler, worst quarterback in this division. Boom, exactly 1 minute. All right. I believe Jordan is next, and you get to talk about Matthew Stafford. This should be fun for you too. So your minute starts now.
All right, Matthew Stafford. I'm looking at the Detroit Lions depth chart right now. Here we go. Wide receivers. We have Golden Tate, Anquan Bolden, who's, I don't know, is he 50 yet? I think his 50th birthday is coming up pretty soon. Andre Caldwell, TJ Jones, Eric Ebron just got injured, and then obviously the biggest thing I haven't mentioned yet is Calvin Johnson is retired. He is no longer a Detroit Lion. So all of a sudden, Matthew Stafford's go-to guy is no longer on the team, no longer in the league. So all of a sudden, you're looking at this. They have no Reggie Bush anymore. They're down to Amir Abdullah, relatively unproven yet highly touted running back. But this receiving core is going to make things very difficult for Matthew Stafford to have any kind of sustained success in this division. I think in this division, Rodgers has the most natural ability. Seconds. I think Cutler has ability as well. Stafford with abilities, but just when you look at the weapons that he has, this is not going to be a team, an offense that produces a lot this season.
All right, well said. All right, Dusty, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right, here we go. Teddy Bridgewater, worst quarterback in the division. Why?
All right, listen, man. Last year was his first year as a starter, second year in the league. Now he started 13 games in his rookie season, but his full season as a starter, started all 16 games, 11-5. We all know they had the division title. That's awesome. You have any idea what his numbers were? Like, he threw for barely over 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in 16 starts. That's preposterous. His touchdown percentage, which is just touchdowns per attempt, basically, was 3.1. Aaron Rodgers' lowest as a starter was 5.2, and that was in his first year as a starter. In a down year last year, Aaron Rodgers had 5.4, and Teddy Bridgewater had 3.1. Again, 16 games, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They had a terrible line, which, granted, they improved a little bit. The receivers, aside from Stephon Diggs, were awful.
5 seconds.
And they've gotten a little better at that. But he's got an arm that makes Andy Dalton look like he's got a rifle. So I don't know. I like it. I think it's gonna be a bad year for him.
All right. Well, the reason that I would agree that he'll be the worst is because he may not even attempt a pass all season long. It may just be run with Adrian Peterson every single play.
That might make him the best, though.
That's possible, I suppose. So, I'm now going to go all political, and since each of you got a win, I'm going to give myself the win on the third one. Plus I got to defend. I got to say Jay Cutler, so I'm probably going to be right.
You got the easiest target, man. You got the easiest target.
Very PC of you. Very PC
well,
of you.
if one of you guys wants to host the show,
everybody,
you can pick the winners.
Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets a trophy.
James Harrison is livid right now.
All right. Well, you know what? It's week 1 of us doing the coin toss, so I'll be as PC as I want to. Next time, I'll be brutal. All right. I'll be honest and brutal. No favorites. No nothing. All right. All right. So before we move on to further talking about the NFC North and previewing what's going to happen in our own division, I'm going to pass things over to Jordan to talk about our sponsor. Our show, as you know, is brought to us by Pride and Glory Clothing. Go ahead, Jordan. Tell us about them.
Pride and Glory Clothing. In fact, coming up, right now, you can go to their website, prideandglory63.com, prideandglory63.com. A lot of still great Packers shirts, still from their old collection. I think they're starting their new collection. They already have a new shirt ready for pre-order. In fact, if you go to their website now and pre-order at checkout, you can get 10% off. Their new T-shirt says the left guard on it, in honor of Fuzzy Thurston. So yeah, please check out that website. Still a lot of good merchandise there to check out. I own a couple of those shirts. Dusty, I think you own one of those shirts.
Yeah,
right?
I've got the sweep. It's just one of my favorite shirts.
As do I. Yep, Diagrams, the famous Packers sweep from the 60s. So yeah, check out prideandglory63.com.
There we go. Awesome stuff. Check them out. Great shirts. All right.
Great guy, too. Fred Thurston's a great guy.
Very good guy.
He is. He's been on this show several times now, and we always enjoy having him here. And I'm sure he'll be here again at some point this season. So, yeah, we like him. He's a good guy.
Yep.
All right. On to our NFC North preview. And we've got 3 questions to go to, and we'll start with the obvious one. Who's going to win this division? Who will be NFC North champion in January? Jordan, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, I mean, the debate people are going to have is, you had the Vikings win last year. Packers underachieving throughout a lot of the second half of last season. So I think most people are limited down to those two teams, Packers and Vikings. So the big question you got to ask yourself is, you had the Vikings at 11-5, you had the Packers at 10-6. And you say, well, what's got to give with this? I mean, obviously, I think most people would say last year a more talented team on paper is probably Green Bay. And this year, I think you'd probably say the same thing. Like, how much better has Minnesota gotten in terms of free agent pickups and rookies, and just how their team is going to improve? You look at their most valuable offensive weapon is still Adrian Peterson. He's another year older. Is he going to be as effective as he was last year? For me, I find it difficult for the Vikings to get to 11-5 again. I see them as a 9-7, as a 10-6 team, whereas the Packers I see as an 11-5 and a 12-4 team. So as of right now, with having played 0 preseason games, I'm picking the Packers to win this division. I'm going to say 11-5. I'm going to go conservative. I think that's what it's going to be like. I think that's what their schedule is leaning towards. But that's how I see this division shaping up a few months from now.
All right, Dusty, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at them and not say the Packers. And I mean, some of that's bias, and some of that is just, like Jordan said, looking at what the Vikings did last year and kind of looking forward this year. They caught some breaks. Packers had a down year, and then even then kind of gave them a run. Just kind of looking at projections for next year and kind of how things are looking. The Vikings have in the division, now none of them have a particularly hard schedule, but the Vikings have the toughest of that schedule. Their opponent averages out to about the average team in the league. It's actually 19th ranked hardest schedule, so in the bottom half, but still close to average. The Packers are 29, so they have one of the easier projected schedules going forward. So kind of looking off that and the fact that they kind of overperformed, the Vikings overperformed what they should have done last year. They got some good fumble luck, recovered a lot. They seem like a team that everything went right for them last year to get to that 11-5 record. And I don't think they're a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, but looking at Football Outsiders DVOA numbers, both their offense and defense were right at average. Like, their offense was 16th ranked and their defense was 14th ranked. They should not have won 11 games last year. They had some breaks go their way, so they could be essentially the same team. They added Treadwell in the draft. I like him a lot. But Vikings could be essentially the same team they were last year and win, 8-9 games. I'm kind of thinking they're going to win 9, put the Packers like somewhere between 10 or 11. And the Lions and Bears seem like they're bringing up the rear. I think Lions third, probably Bears fourth, but I think it's down between Packers and Vikings, and I see some of those breaks going against the Vikings this year, and the Packers with Nelson back just being better than they were last year.
I really wish I had your guys' confidence. I'm going to say the Packers, but I don't feel great about saying it. I think the Packers will go 11-5, maybe 12-4. I think we're right in that range. But I look around this division, and in the draft, I remember all weekend just waiting for that one pick within the division that I could laugh at, and I just think that all three teams absolutely nailed it in the draft. I think all three teams improved, at least on paper, improved, outside of, losing Calvin Johnson, as was mentioned before. I'm going to say the Packers. It's going to be close in my mind, but I like the Vikings coaching staff a lot, and we're going to win this by a game at best. It might even be a same record but tiebreaker situation. I think the Vikings have a lot of talent. I think the Bears are going to take a step back, and I think the Lions are going to take a step back, but they also have a lot of talent, so they're going to be really deadly. So, just like last year where we lost one game to each of those three teams, it could be a similar situation where we go 3-3 in the division and lose a game to each. It wouldn't surprise me, just because each team has their own danger levels. So I'm going to go Packers in the end, but I think it's going to be closer than you guys are giving credit for.
Well, Brian, can you release a chart of your danger levels, Brian? I'm curious.
Danger levels? I
want to see your chart. I want to see how you judge danger.
Well, first of all, the Vikings drafted Moritz Boehringer, so that's the German Jeff Janis right there.
So he's gonna get cut, is what you're saying.
No, and you know what? With the Lions, maybe there's not a whole lot of danger there, but they did a lot to improve that offensive line, and that was a big issue. And Stafford, as average or below average of a quarterback as he is, always finds those ways to turn a sack into a big gain against the Packers defense, and he does it with these little underhand flips from within the arms of two pass rushers, and it just drives me nuts every time. And then
Theo Riddick is kind of perfect at that as well.
Right, and with the Bears, Jay Cutler, I'm not a fan of his at all, but he's a gunslinger, and along with all of those terrible throws are going to be a couple that just he totally nails, and they go for big gains. They're getting Kevin White back, who's essentially going to be a rookie this year, tore his ACL before getting to play as a first-round draft pick last year. So, they have weapons. They have guys that can just burn us, and, I wouldn't be surprised if we went 5-1 in the division. I just also wouldn't be surprised if one play in each of those games just burned us.
Hey, can I drop a quick Jay Cutler fact on you, going off the gunslinger thing?
Please do.
Did you know... So he's got the gunslinger tag attached to him, always has. In this pass-happy league, he has never thrown for 30 touchdowns in a season. He has once eclipsed 4,000 yards. That's insane to me.
That is insane.
For someone who's essentially been a starter for what's he going on now? 10 years? 9 years? I think 9 years a full-time starter. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, but as for all of those 3, 4, 5 interception games, for every 3 of those, he's going to have a 4 touchdown game. Mm-hmm. So if that happens to coincide with the week they play the Packers, then that could be a loss.
True.
So
to add on to your Jay Cutler fact, I do believe he even with that statistic, he has thrown the most touchdowns in Bears history.
Yep.
That's so sad.
And I think Alshon Jeffrey is, about 1,300 yards away from being the Bears' all-time leading receiver, which is insane. That's insane to me. I think he's played 50 games.
Does Marty Booker have the record?
I need to look up to see who has the record.
I'm curious.
I'm
curious.
Where are
Marty Booker's got to? He's got to be up there.
Marty.
Well, Grossman was only there for.
Grossman
was only there for a couple seasons.
I know.
He let him do a Super Bowl, but he wasn't there that long.
No, he wasn't, and he was injured for a lot of it.
Man, this is simultaneously making me laugh and just making me really depressed. Goodness gracious. All
Sorry,
right.
Brian Avila's.
All right. So we've got who takes first. Now the question is, who's going to take last? Who's going to finish fourth in this division? And Jordan started last time, so Dusty, kick us off here. Who's going to take last?
I got the Bears, which I mean, Brian, you made some very good points, and I don't disagree with any of them. The Bears had a good draft. They picked up in free agency too, Danny Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman in the middle, both on reasonable deals. Both guys that I really wanted to be on the inside in Green Bay, so that was a little disappointing. But their defense was just atrocious last year. They ranked 31st only because the Saints had a historically bad year. So, I mean, their offense was actually decent. Their offense was 10th, but their defense was awful. And so they upgraded that, which is good. But they still have Jay Cutler. They got rid of Matt Forte. They have Alshon Jeffrey, who I think tweaked a knee in practice or something. Something happened this past week. He might be good to go for the season. I don't know. But I don't really trust the offense too much. Like you said, Cutler had his best year last year. I guess from an efficiency standpoint, he threw for 3,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on 64% completion. So he was not it was fine. He just wasn't great. He was good for Jay Cutler, but whatever. So the Bears probably will be better, but I don't know. I think the Lions will be decent even without Calvin Johnson. Not decent, but yeah, maybe a little scary. 7 wins, maybe 7 and 9. I don't know. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a battle between those two at the bottom, and I see the Bears just not quite being good enough to make it over that hump. And I think I put that on the offense. Defense should be improved.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. I agree that the Bears are going to take a step back from where they were. I think they overachieved last year, which all credit to them for overachieving. But I look at this Lions team and, all the good I said about them with, Stafford having those random throws that go for big gains and their offensive line being improved. They don't have a whole lot else. They don't have receivers. Yeah. We don't know when Eric Ebron will be back from his injury. And I look up and down that defense and I don't really see anything that pops out the way that they used to. That defensive line that used to be so dominant it's dispersed. They've got some good pass rush. They still have some good linebackers, but that secondary is definitely beatable, and you can beat them up the middle. Unlike 2 years ago, where Ndamukong Suh just absolutely shut it down. It's not the same Lions team, and I'm sorry, Lions fans, but it looks to me like you're going to go back into that long playoff drought, and I think it's going to be a while before they turn things around. Lions worst in the division this year. Jordan?
I agree, and I mean you're talking rosters. One thing we haven't really talked too much about is just coaching as well. I mean you're talking John Fox versus Jim Caldwell. I take John Fox 10 times out of 10 in that particular matchup. So I mean for that, I mean last year the Lions went 7-9, Bears went 6-10. You talked about the drafts. I think every team improved in terms of the draft. We're talking about a lot of rookies, but I think John Fox is going to make more use out of those rookies than Jim Caldwell will make out of his draft class. And I think it's going to be tough for Caldwell to adapt to the loss of one of the easily top 5, top 2, maybe the best receiver in the game in Calvin Johnson. It's going to be difficult. I don't see that Lions offense scoring a lot of points. Yeah. I think their record gets worse. I think 6-10 is their peak. Whereas the Bears, even though there's nothing too impressive about their team, Jay Cutler's ability with those weapons, you talk about Kevin White, Alshon Jeffrey, if those guys can stay healthy and they're able to be productive, I could see the Bears jumping up to maybe 7-9, maybe even 8-8, maybe even battling for a wild card. I wouldn't be so surprised to see that. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears in that position late in December. I really wouldn't. So for me, I'm picking Detroit to be last and the Bears to potentially be a sneaky, maybe then there for the second wild card spot. Truthfully, John Fox is a good coach. We have a lot of good coaching in this division, with the exception of Jim Caldwell. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears there.
All right, but Jim Bob Cooter, guys, Jim Bob Cooter.
He got it in. There it is.
He did. All right. They actually did improve. Their offense got
Back to the Future is back. We mentioned them.
Their offense did get better under Cooter. I mean, they improved quite a bit under him. But, I mean, yeah, the loss of Calvin Johnson.
I'm sorry, I can't take that sentence seriously. The offense improved under Cooter.
Do you want me to say it slower? Do you want me to say it? I can do it in an accent, or I can do it slower?
Oh my goodness! All right, new goal for our podcast is to make sure that Jim Bob Cooter gets a mention in every single episode this year.
Easy,
guys. I think we can do
Done.
this. I think we can.
Oh,
I think
easy.
we can.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
I mean, we can have a "What did Jim Bob Cooter do this week" segment or something. I think we can do this.
I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it.
I have faith in us. All right, final question is how many teams in the NFC North are going to make the playoffs, and which ones will they be? Jordan.
Ooh, I'm gonna say 2. I think the Packers and the Vikings do both get into the playoffs. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears in the hunt at the end, but I'm thinking about the other team. You're talking the NFC West. I see the Cardinals and the Seahawks getting out of that division. I think it'd be tough for the Bears to knock out, say, maybe the Cowboys or the Redskins out of the East to get that second wild card spot. I find it unlikely, but I think they'll be in the hunt. But I do think the Vikings are good enough to get there. Obviously, I think the Packers are good enough to get there. So I'm going to say 2 teams out of the North get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree, and for pretty much the same reasons. There's too much talent in the NFC West. There's too much talent in the NFC East. There is still an NFC South, right? It still exists.
Barely.
There's the Panthers. I think there's other teams, but there's the Panthers.
I can't think of any other teams in that division right now. So
yeah,
I don't know. If one of you wants to name one later, that's fine. But
I'll look it up.
I think the Vikings can hold off one of those NFC West or NFC East teams. I could see the Redskins kind of falling back this year, while the Cowboys probably take that division. But you never know in the NFC East. They've had a new champion every year for the past 175 years, so nobody knows what's really going to happen there, except that the Eagles are probably going to suck, which that's fine with me. Yeah, and like I said, I picked the Packers to win the division. I think the Vikings are going to be right behind us, so I do think they sneak in with one of those wild card spots. Dusty?
Yeah, I was going to say 1, and then looking at the NFC to see who I was going to make a case for to get that other spot from there. Man, I don't see it. Like you said, it's going to be the Seahawks and Cards. I was going to make a case for the Falcons, but I don't know, my glass of bourbon's empty, so yeah. I can't.
Why would you do that to yourself?
I can't do it, man.
Matt Ryan threw an interception to his offensive coordinator in practice the other day. He threw an interception
That's one of my
to his
favorite videos
offensive
from the offseason. I have watched that entirely too many times. It's a dynamite video. It's just it's so bad. So yeah, I mean, I hate to pick Packers and Vikings again, just because there usually is some turnover in the race. So I will say Packers with the division, Vikings with the wild card. So I'll say 2. I don't know. I don't really see the Bears Bears or Lions really making a push. Maybe making it interesting, but that last month, I can't imagine anyone's going to be talking about them. I could see a team like the Bucks or something, maybe as making a surprise push and getting the Vikings up out of there. But for now, I'll say 2 with the Vikings and Packers.
All right. Well,
little Jameis Winston love. I like it.
It's Mike Evans love, really.
Okay.
I like that. I can see that. All right. Well, that's all we have today. Hope you enjoyed the new segment of the Coin Toss. We're excited to have some more concrete content to talk through. Yeah, we're just going to expand on that. We're excited. We're really pumped for this season. We'll be back in a couple weeks after the second preseason game, and we'll give a mid-preseason report. Before we sign off, I think we have a Twitter question or two. So, Dusty, what do we got?
Oh, yes. Okay, let me pull this up real quick. Okay, so our question is from Christina Jenkins. That's Christina_41, and she says, and we kind of covered this a little bit in our coin flip segment, but her question is: it appears that Janis is a special teams lock to make the team, and rightfully so. Any scenario that he does not make the team. I'll go first. I think the scenario you can make that he doesn't make the team is basically, I hate to give credit to this guy, but it's basically exactly what Jordan lined up. It's that some younger player, some rookie, some undrafted guy comes in that knows how to run, say, a hook route or something, or knows that a slant route you need to keep running on. That can step in as like 6th, 7th receiver if they need him. That can also be a special teams gunner. Personally, I don't see it. I think he's going to make the team because their special teams has been terrible, and he was so good last year. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. Jordan, you kind of made it, but you guys got thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I don't think it makes him a lock, but I think it gives him a really good chance. Like Jordan said, somebody might step up, but there's no other undrafted receiver on our team that is as strong as Jeff Janis is, and who can deliver a hit like Jeff Janis can. So I don't think that just any other, another receiver can step up and contribute on special teams in other ways, but none of them are going to be able to step up and be the gunner that way. I don't think it guarantees him a spot, but I think it gives him an edge at a spot. There is a scenario where he could be cut, but I think he has a leg up because of his special teams gunner ability. Any thoughts, Jordan?
Well, I think last year too, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I mean, there was always Jeff Janis was always a point of discussion, not just on this podcast, but a lot of Packers talk was just about Janis. So I think every time he made a play, everyone just kind of bookmarked that in their mind and said, "Oh, look at that, another great play by Janis," right?
Right.
Meanwhile, we already have. You talk about a guy like Chris Banjo, another guy that we don't really talk a lot about. That's a special teams ace right there. Another guy that keeps making plays. Even a guy like Aaron Ripkowski, a guy who goes down and makes plays on special teams. It's about work ethic. I mean, a lot of guys can come out and become good special teams players. If to think that that's what Janis can solely rely on to be a part of the 53-man roster, I think is a little naive. Now, I still tend to think, based on his play in the, those couple plays he made in the playoff game last year, that's really helping his cause. Without those, I think the tone of this discussion would be a lot different. I think we'd really be talking about him being the last guy out, but it's just gonna be interesting. We got to see some preseason. So, and we should have seen some preseason, but we don't know. Apparently, there's different kinds of paints, and
they pick the one that will burn skin.
Yeah,
melt rubber.
Rubber pellets don't react well to high heat, apparently. So that's one thing we learned. So that's good.
Jeez. Okay.
I'm gonna double check the next time I'm at Lowe's. I want to make sure I'm putting the right paint on my wall.
We do have we've got one more question, and I may need some help with this one, but this comes from. By the way, if you want to send us questions, our Twitter handle is at @PTTF_podcast. So we're always looking for questions. So follow us, send them in. This comes from how do you pronounce this? Geoff Peck? Geoff Peck.
That's I think that's what we called him growing up. Yeah,
it's Jeff at Jeff G Peck. This is Jordan's brother.
That's right.
His question is, how is my Abby is better than Devontae prediction looking? I don't remember him making this prediction specifically, but I think just based on that question, it's easy to pick up on what he's asking. As far as pure skill, Aberderis seems to be a better receiver than Devontae Adams, but more goes into it than just that. Specifically, Abby's injury history more than anything else. But yeah, I don't know if you're saying that Aberderis is better than Devontae Adams, then I believe you are correct, and that prediction looks great.
Well, the other thing too is we really we have two guys on this of all of these receivers that we have two guys that are built or their skill set is better used on the outside. You have Jordy and you have Devontae. All of the other guys, and literally all of them, maybe with the exception of Janis, but I'm not even sure about that, are meant for the inside. You're talking about Cobb, Trevor Davis. These guys are all going to be slot receiver types. Yeah. So I think that helps Devontae Adams. Just the fact that he is more that type of receiver, and that doesn't help to go with Aberdarius. I think that goes against him. But again, it's just we got to see these guys in action more in the game setting. So it'll be interesting.
All right, I think you guys said it all. All right, please, I'll leave a link in the description here. So please go to our iTunes and leave us a review, give us a rating, preferably 5 stars, but we'll leave it up to you. You can be honest. Gentlemen, tell them where we can find you on Twitter. Jordan?
You can find me on Twitter and Snapchat and farmersonly.com.
Beautiful.
At JGPeck41. That's at JGPeck41.
Dusty?
I am at Dusty Evely. It's Evely as the last name.
All right, and I am at TTSO_Brian, and I signed off of farmersonly.com because it just turned into like this dancing rave party, so I'm not Jewish, but now I'm on JDate, so you can find me on there.
Must be different in Colorado than here in Virginia.
It's very different. Don't even ask. Don't even ask. We're going to move on. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.